Today, I'm coming to you with an update on my $10 daily investing into VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market ETF. So, today's update is not going to be like the last few that I've shared. I am 133 weeks in, still being consistent since September of 2022. I'm going to share my current results as well as look back on some of my previous updates to share how things are looking in this current economy while we are dealing with these tariffs and all kinds of economic uncertainty. We'll also take a look at an article related to the ongoing debate of which is better, VTI or VOO. A few Vanguard ETFs that are performing strong so far in 2025. So, since September of 2022, I've been investing $10 Monday through Friday into VTI. I started this as a challenge and I decided to stay consistent with this investment in one of my taxable accounts. This is one of my extra things that I'm doing in addition to retirement. I have different investment goals and like having the liquidity and flexibility of tapping into some of my investments when I want to. So, investing daily, this is called dollar cost averaging. I have decided and committed to this amount on a regular basis, no matter what the stock market is looking like, whether the prices are high or low. Just continuing every day and just allowing all of these prices to average together and smooth out my long term cost basis when it comes to investing. So, VTI, the Vanguard Total Stock Market, is an ETF, an exchange traded fund that gives you exposure to not only large, but mid and small cap stocks, the entire US stock market in one investment choice. You're getting exposure to over 3,600 different companies. This ETF is weighted by market cap, the largest companies in the US. So, this fund is tech heavy. The top five largest holdings are Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA, Amazon, and Meta. And year to date, Meta is the best performing when it comes to these companies. So we're going to take a look at the performance of those top five companies. But before we get on to that, just want to mention VTI also has a low expense ratio of 0.03%. Another factor that makes it a favorite of investors for the broad diversification, but also low cost for the fees that we are charged. So, those top biggest holdings, we have Apple down 10.88% year to date, Microsoft down 9.64%, Amazon down 10.96%, NVIDIA down 18.17%, and Meta, which I said was the best performing, down just 0.48% as of the time that I'm recording. So, just giving that background because those are the top five holdings. VTI's current price is $276.93. It's down 4.4% on the year. VTI, as well as all of those tech stocks within it, have been moving down throughout February and into March. The market has been heavily affected by the tariff concerns and the potential impact that it will have. But I'm not panicking. Short term volatility is a part of investing. When I made my first investment starting this challenge, it was on September the 12th, and the share price was $206.35. Looking back as we moved into the end of September and we were at $179.47. So I was in the red on my investment, but I kept going and going and going. So I'm just sharing that because I've been there. The shorter amount of time that you've been invested, the harder your portfolio could be hit during times like we're going through right now, to the point where you could be impacted by all of your gains totally being erased. And I just want you to know that I have been there. But when you make a choice of good, sound investments, blue chip stocks, ETFs like the one we're talking about right here, it will recover. And when you go about using a consistent amount, dollar cost averaging, you're not focused on trying to time the market, find the bottom. You're just being consistent and making sure that you are on track to build up your portfolio. Now, I do have VTI in multiple accounts. So this one, I stick to $10 daily, but if there is a significant pullback and my budget allows for it, I buy additional shares in my other portfolio. because this is a high conviction long-term investment that I am incorporating. It is a foundational investment in my portfolio, known for its steady growth, those quarterly dividends, and making a recovery. It is the total US stock market. So I'm definitely thinking long term and prioritizing my long term vision when it comes to this one. It's not a trade, it's an investment. Okay, so VTI currently $277.30. Back in May, when I gave an update, I was up 21.27% and had 20 shares. And then in January's update, I was at 26.4 shares, up 25.36%. But now, today, this market shift that we are seeing so far in 2025, I currently have 28.3 shares. I'm up 18.01%. I've invested about $6,600 and my portfolio value is $7,800 for a gain of about $1,200. The current dividend is 0.9854. I received my last dividend payment at the end of March, and that payment was $27.52, which I reinvest in order to buy more shares. So, as I said, I'm going to keep going with this investment journey little by little, building up my share size. I am glad that dollar cost averaging exists so that I don't have to always put in $276 or $277 a share in order to be on my investing journey, whether it comes to retirement or accounts that I am focused on building up. Now, let's take a look at an article I was looking at. It's a Reddit debate that's going on about VTI or VOO. Should I consider investing 100% of my Roth into one of these ETFs? The community over on Reddit was divided when it came to this question. And most of the time, wherever this debate is going on, it's usually the same outcome. They are very similar. There is an 87% overlap between these two funds. I do hold investments that give me exposure to the total US stock market as well as the S&P 500 in my portfolios, but I have different portfolios for different reasons, and I'm okay with having exposure to both. When it comes to VOO, you're getting a more concentrated exposure to the top 500 companies, which can be good in bull markets, but the performance of both of these funds are very similar and they have the same expense ratio of 0.03%. So, as I said, I invest into both. I have different purposes for my investments. I have FXAIX, which gives me exposure to those top 500 companies in my retirement account, and some VOO and VTI in my taxable accounts. But VTI will always be one of my favorites that gives exposure to the whole market. Another headline that caught my eye was 3 Vanguard ETFs to buy in the month of April, and VTI and VOO were on the list, in addition to an international fund, which I want to take a look at, the one that they mentioned, as well as a few others. So, that third fund that they suggested for April of 2025 is this VXUS, the Vanguard Total International ETF. So, looking at the performance of VOO year to date, it's down 4.11%. One of the main reasons is the tariffs. Meanwhile, international or European funds are thriving a bit more when you take a look year to date. The tariffs are creating a lot of volatility on the market. Businesses are worried about supply chains and higher costs. Manufacturers are going to have to deal with potential higher tariffs when it comes to steel and aluminum, for example. These are just a few things that is allowing some of these other markets to perform better. So, year to date, up 5.55%. A couple of other international based funds that you might want to take a look at are VGK, which is the Vanguard European Stock ETF. It's up 10.82% year to date. Or VYMI, Vanguard's International High Dividend Yield ETF. Just additional ways that you can diversify your portfolio even more, exposure that you get from a VTI or VOO. So, year to date in 2025, these funds are thriving more than the US based funds. But when you zoom out, for example, on VXUS, Over the last 5 years, it's up 53.91%, while VTI is up 124.06%. So good to stay diversified, but the market has different trends and stresses that it goes through, and certain things are going to thrive at different times. So do your research. This might be one that you want to consider to have additional international exposure for the times when the US market is going through all of this uncertainty. VXUS gives you exposure to 7,500 plus international stocks and has a expense ratio, I believe, of 0.08%. So overall, how am I reacting to this stock market pullback? I'm sticking to my plan. I'm not worried about the short-term volatility, VTI being down about $25 from its all-time high. I'm having my eyes open to the buying opportunity when it comes to my ETFs as well as my individual stocks. So come up with a plan for yourself and stick to it. VTI has historically always bounced back. I'm staying focused on my goals, whether it's early retirement for my daughter. I know what my whys are when it comes to my investing plan. Make sure to leave me some comments. Let me know your thoughts about VTI versus VOO. Is VTI one of your favorite ETFs like it is for me? Subscribe, like, and hit that notification bell so you can keep up with all of my videos and live streams. Not investing yet? Make sure to check out my referral links that will be in the description and pinned in the comments. We'll both get free stock and you'll be supporting the channel. And another way you can do that is by joining channel membership. Thanks for watching. Okay, bye.